Now, one of the most important things that I could talk to you about is going to be market research. Market research is really important to the long-term success of your company. Now, let's get started with this. I realize it's going to be a little lengthy, but if you'll hang with me, you'll see why this is extremely important. So you have this great idea for a product, something that you just know is going to bust open the marketplace. Or perhaps you have this idea for a service that isn't being offered by anyone and it's desperately needed by the consumer. And you know that this is an opportunity. Don't hesitate. Don't look back. Jump right in and hold on there, Speedy. Before you shift into high gear, you must find out if there is actually a need or a market for the product or service you want to offer. Simply put, you must conduct market research to know what the market demand is for the product or service you want to offer. Now, most people, and I add incorrectly, will sit back and wonder, I wonder if there actually is a market for this. And then they try to hypothesize the market without actually having any data, any knowledge, any intelligence whatsoever as to whether or not it's really going to work. Now, I realize that this is going to get a little technical, but I promise if you hang with me, you're going to understand this. There are two ways to look at market research. In fact, if you were in a university setting studying business, we would tell you these two market research concepts. The two types of research that you're going to gather are what we call primary and secondary research. Now, in scholarly levels, primary research is king. We want as much primary research as possible, meaning that if I'm writing a book or if I'm doing a study or doing a report, I want to have as much firsthand knowledge and experience and understanding about the subject as anything else. That means that secondary, while good, is not as strong and powerful as the primary. So primary market research is the information that comes directly from the source. That is the potential customer, right? Or the market. You can compile this information yourself or you can hire someone to do it for you. You're going to do this through surveys. And by the way, SurveyMonkey is a great tool to use for this, and it doesn't cost a lot of money. You can do it for free, but there's a paid level to it as well. So you can do surveys. You can do focus groups. Focus groups are groups of people that sit in a room and you show them a product. You say, hey, what do you think of this product? And they say, oh, let me hold it. Let me look at it. Let me smell it. Let me taste it. Yeah, I like it. No, I don't. Here's what I like about it. Here's what I don't like about it. Those are focus groups, right? And then there's other methods where you can get these firsthand experiences from the primary research. Then there's the secondary research. And this is market research that is more gathering statistics, reading reports, looking at studies, reading articles. Maybe you saw a documentary on television. All this data is organized, and it comes from like government agencies, trade associations, even your local chamber of commerce will have this information. So remember, we want primary resources, and we will supplement that with secondary resources. Now, when you're doing research, when you're looking at your market, this is not something you're going to want to rush through. You may need to take some time to do this. It could take you a week. It could take you 6 months. I don't know what your market is. I don't know what your product is unless I'm talking to you about it. But whatever the case may be, however long you're going to take to do this, you have to have some goals for your research in mind before you even go into it. Now, market research should be designed to help you and your business become more competitive and more profitable. That's why we do it. We want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the consumer. If your market research efforts couldn't eventually give your company some benefits, then why would you be doing it? Why would you waste your time doing it? It's better to be doing something else, right? So before you begin, it's important to define exactly what you want to figure out through your market research. Your research may lead you in unexpected directions, and that's okay. It's perfectly fine. However, it's not a good idea to start your research without any idea at all, right? You need to have some concrete goals in mind as you're entering into that. So here are a few types of questions that I would encourage that you ask yourself to prepare these goals. Consider this when designing your market research. First and foremost, is there a need for what my company offers? Is there a need for the product or service we're thinking about selling? Research the priorities and spending habits of the market, of the consumer, to help you determine whether it's a good idea or not to attempt to do business in this market area. Make sure that you're in the right market. For example, if you live in Alaska, right? It's not likely that you would want to start a business for outdoor in-ground swimming pools. Okay? Maybe you would want to start a market for indoor heated pools, but certainly not outdoor pools. Now, the next thing that I'd encourage you to do is to think about the general needs that you perceive in your market. Then ask yourself if and how I can meet those. For example, think about what you're doing right now and what you could do in the future. Culturally, healthy eating is very popular right now. And there are multiple types of diets and health approaches and thinking and so forth. So if you plan to open a restaurant, you need to ask yourself, what are the cultural trends? And am I going to offer healthy options? Am I junk food? Am I fast food? Do I have options for people with restrictive diets? What am I going to do? And then the next question I'd like you to ask yourself is about pricing. And this could be, am I pricing the product or service effectively? Pricing is one of the largest factors in why consumers may leave you for the competition. Now, let me stop here before I go on. I had a conversation with someone just today, and I was talking to them about price. And they were saying to me that people come to them often, they say, yeah, you're quoting me this amount, but I can get it for this amount. That's because the consumer you're with is price driven. So when you're putting together your customer avatar, you need to understand what their mentality of price is. And here's an example. There are people that shop at Walmart and will only shop at Walmart, and there's nothing wrong with that. They maybe can't afford to shop anywhere other than Walmart. And then there are people who will only shop at Macy's or Whole Foods. And there's nothing wrong with the person who wants to shop at Macy's or Whole Foods. And then there's the weirdos like me that'll shop at both, right? That's not your target audience, the weirdo in the middle. Your target audience is either you're a Walmart or you're a Macy's. Another way to put this is you're either a Mazda or a Maserati. And you have to understand that the consumer that buys a Mazda is only going to pay a certain amount. So your pricing is important. The person who buys a Maserati is probably not too concerned about pricing. They're buying quality. They're buying the value add that you're giving them, the return on investment, whatever the case may be. So you need to maximize your profits per unit sold, but you need to also make sure that you're not pricing yourself out of the market, right? Researching your competition's practices and wide-scale market trends can help you ensure that you're making money, as much money as possible, without hurting your business. So this means that you have an understanding of the market and what the market bears. If you are a Maserati trying to sell a Maserati, a level quality, but the person who you're quoting is saying, I'm only willing to pay for Mazda pricing, that means that you're probably targeting the wrong audience, or your messaging somehow is collecting this group of people without helping them understand that, no, you're truly a Maserati. You're not going. If I want to buy a car, I'm not going to go someplace where I can't afford to buy the car. If you're going to buy groceries, I'm not going to go somewhere where my budget can't afford to buy the groceries. So you need to make sure that you understand the target audience that you're approaching. Okay, so now that we've talked about that, let's talk about developing a plan to gather the information as efficiently as possible. Just as important as knowing what you want to research, we want to look at the idea of how you can realistically research and reach your goal, okay? Again, plans can change, and they do change in research. However, setting goals without having any idea of how to achieve them is never a good idea. For market research especially. So here's some questions I want you to consider. Will I need to find extensive market data? In other words, will I need to get a lot of data to prove my point, or do I need to get a little bit? Analyzing existing data can help you make decisions about the future of your business, about the marketplace, but it could be hard to find these facts. So you want to make sure that you're focused correctly. You also, finding useful and accurate data can be difficult. So keep that in mind. The next question you need to ask yourself is, will I need to do independent research? Creating your own data from surveys, focus groups, interviews, and more can tell you a lot about your company and the market it's operating in. But these projects require a lot of time and resources that can be spent on other things. So keep that in mind, that if you're going to take on the research, that you're going to be burning the midnight oil because it's going to take some time to crunch the numbers and understand. So let's look at the uses for market research. The first use that I find is that it identifies opportunities to serve various groups of customers. Here we verify and understand the unmet needs of a certain group or market of customers. What do they say? What do they want? What do they say they need? What do they say they want? Some useful data collect. You get the difference in that? What they say and what they want, and what they say they want are sometimes two different things. Some useful data collection methods might be, for example, conducting focus groups, and we've talked about that already. Interviewing customers and investors, reading the newspaper and other key library publications, and listening to what your current clients say and observe what they do. Sometimes the answer is right in front of you. Now, later on, you might even develop a preliminary version of your product that you pilot or test market to verify if the product would sell or not. And you would go to those consumers, right? Another thing you want to consider is examining the size of the market. How many people have the unmet need for the product or service you're offering? Identify various subgroups. Subgroups, of course, are market segments. In the overall market alone, with each of their unique features and preferences, you need to look at the overall market. What are the individual unique features and preferences that they have? Useful data collection methods might be, for example, reading about demographics and social trends in publications, maybe at the library. By the way, I use a tool on my smartphone called Flipboard. It's a great resource for articles on given subjects that I'm interested in. You might observe each group for a while to notice what they do, what they don't do. You want to consider interviewing some members of each group, and finally consider conducting focus groups or maybe two groups. You have a control group and you have another group. Maybe you have your current clients and you have potential clients, right? Another question to ask is to determine the best method to meet unmet needs. And so how can you develop the product with the features and benefits that are requested to meet the unmet need? I'll give you an example. Right now, I'm wrestling with something that I don't really have the expertise for, and I can do it, but I don't have the time for it. And I'm thinking to myself, this would be a great market for this if someone knew how to do this and they could make it simple for the end consumer to use this particular service. How can you ensure that you have the capacity to continue to meet current demand? A lot of times businesses grow way too fast, and what kills them is they don't have the capacity to meet the need or meet the demand. Here are a few focus groups that can really come in handy. Here's where focus groups can come in handy, right? Conduct focus groups, including asking them about their preferences, unmet needs, and how those needs might be met. Run your ideas past them. You say, I'm thinking about doing this. At the same time, ask them what they would need to use, what would they need to be able to use the service, and what would they pay for them. Here's the key. If you want to know where your target market stands, ask them, how much would you pay for this? The next thing I do is investigate the competition. Examine their products, their services, their marketing techniques, their pricing, their locations. One of the best ways to understand your competition is to use their services. Go to their locations. Look around and look at some of their literature. Notice their ads and their newsletters in the newspaper. Look at their website. I'll tell you, one of the key things that I do is not only do I look at competition, but I look at people that are doing things similar to what I want to do, and I study their advertisement, and I study how they say things and convey things, and I study how they reach a certain audience. Because if you want to be really good at what you do, you have to understand your audience. Then I would ask you to clarify your unique value proposition. Now, we're going to be talking about value proposition more than this. But your proposition describes why others should use your organization and not the competition's. And particularly, this is useful data collection method in this area where you use a focus group. Get some groups of potential customers together, tell them about your idea, tell them how your ideas are unique, tell them how you would want the program to be seen, its positioning. Ask them what they think. Ask them how they perceive it. Ask them what's missing. Ask open-ended questions. The next thing I would do is conclude if the product is effectively meeting the needs of the customer. One of the best ways to make this conclusion is to conduct an evaluation. An evaluation often includes the use of various data collection methods, usually several of them. For example, observing clients, interviewing them, administering questionnaires with them, developing some case studies, and ideally conducting a product field test or a pilot. And another thing you could do is, let's say it's food. You can have them do blind taste tests. You can have them do taste tests. You can have them taste something and tell you their feelings about it, what words they would use to describe it, what imagery they'd use. All of this is great market research, helps you in the writing of your advertisements and so forth. The next thing is I would ask you to consider concluding if your advertising and promotion strategies are effective or not. And again, this would be after you've done all the other things and you put together an ad campaign. You might do a focus group and show them an advertisement, show them a video ad that you might play on a television, let them listen to an audio ad they might hear on the radio and get their feedback. This could include several data collection methods like observation, interviewing them and administering questionnaires, developing case studies, and so forth. So here are some basic methods to get information and feedback from the customers. Many times we think we know what the customer is thinking or want because, we're human too. Well, we just know, honestly, that's all wrong. Business can't be successful if you don't continue to meet the needs of the customer. So therefore, you should be talking to the customer, talking to the potential customer, period. There should be a few activities as important as finding out what your customers want from products and services that you're offering. Fortunately, there are a variety of practical methods the businesses can use for this for getting feedback from these customers. These methods that you're going to choose depend on what type of feedback that you want from your customers. For example, define their needs and products and services, what they think about your product or services, ask them. You could go to your employees. Your employees are usually the people who interact the most with the customers. Ask them about products and services that customers are asking for. Ask employees about what the customer complains about. That is key. If you know what the customer complains about, it's magic. I'll give you an example. Occasionally, I will take my family on Sunday morning before we go to church. I will take them through a donut shop. Now, this is a fast food donut shop, to remain nameless. Could be one of two national brands, just saying. The point is that I often say fast food is not. Now, what I mean is that they're not fast. In fact, I know that if we are running late, that we probably shouldn't stop at that place. Even though I like their product, I don't like their service. And I complain about it every time. And you would think that after complaining about it more often than not, that they'd say, hey, this is a problem. Something's wrong here. Something's broken. And I can't even begin to imagine that the national brand would be happy with the fact that their franchise location is slow as slugs, okay? The employee should be giving that feedback to the manager. The manager should be doing something about it because they manage. You see where I'm going with this? Another way that you can get feedback from your customers is through customer cards. You can provide them with a brief little comment card, right? They can answer basic questions. When I go out to restaurants or go to some other service place, more often than not now, they bring the bill with a comment card. And I try to fill them out and try to say something nice about the server. And by the way, become a really good tipper. Don't be that person who tips crappy. I have some people in my family that they believe that bad service means you get a nickel or you get a quarter. You know what? It's not always the fault of the server for bad service. In fact, 9 times out of 10, the holdup is usually in the kitchen, not the server. Or it's because the server has been given a whole section of the restaurant, okay? One person serving 16 tables. It's not their fault. It's management's fault, okay? Comment cards. How could we provide perfect service for you? Are there any services you like that don't exist yet or that we don't offer? The other thing you could do is look at the competition. What is your competition selling? Ask people who shop there. Many people don't notice sales or major items in the store. Start coaching those around you to notice what's going on in their competition store. Maybe even encourage them to go visit. Customers. One of the best ways to find out what a customer wants is just to talk to them. Simple, pure and simple. When I was growing my soap business, Nature Soap Dish, the reason why we ended up with so many product SKUs is because we had customers come along and say, I really, really, really would love to see this product on your website. Can you offer it? And if we had enough interest in it, yes, we would. Then you can use focus groups, surveys by mail, telephone survey. But here's some other places to get major market research. You can go to the Census Bureau, your local Chamber of Commerce, the Department of Commerce, your local library, trade and professional organizations. Trade and professional publications usually come from being a member of the organization. Okay, so let's talk about real quick conducting market research in 4 quick steps. When you're conducting your market research, there are a few preliminary steps that you're going to want to take each and every time to figure out what your audience wants. First, for example, you need to figure out who the audience is. Remember, go back to the target customer avatar, the ideal customer avatar that we have in another segment of this training. You're going to identify your target audience. who is your target audience. Identify what the audience wants and how you're going to reach them. It's a huge part of what you're going to do, right? When you identify your target audience and you're getting ready to create buyer personas, remember your target audience avatar, you should be able to answer questions like how old they are, where they're located, where they live, their gender, maybe their income, maybe their family size or relationship status, education, job title, interests, big challenges and goals in their life. Maybe you want to know what type of car they drive, what type of stores they shop at. All of these are important when doing this. Again, check out the competition, research the competition, understand their pricing, what their value proposition is, what offers specifically target your customer audience and what your audience is responding to, and look at their marketing campaigns. And again, this can't be understated. Engage with your audience. At this stage, you want to find out what your target customer wants, learn as much about them as you can, talk directly with them if needed. Relevant audience members are important to the research. Compiling focus groups of people who aren't already a customer to your brand can be a good option, even if it's more expensive and time consuming, but it doesn't give you the only picture, okay? Compile your data and then go back and answer the original question that led to your research. Some other things you could do is to perform a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There's another section in our training that gives you that. You could start to look for new target markets. And you could also identify further topics for research. Now that sums up market research for this segment. If you have any questions at all, please reach out to us at info@maximumchange.com, and we'll see you in the next section.